All right, today we're getting ready to do some stained concrete floors. Here's some I've done already. I'm using this product here. It's the You Do It Coatings Decorative Concrete Stains. And I got terracotta clay as my base. I've already used some of that. And then I'm gonna do my highlights with Desert Trail. And then I've also got another color over here that I can do like some darker spots with the antique gray, in order to, if you've got a bad looking concrete floor, doing a combination of stains and put some dots and spots on there really helps disguise that. And so here's a floor that I've already done, which I really like how this one turned out. This is the last one I just finished, and I'm a lot happier with it than I've been with some of the other. I've just ground the concrete in this other room, so that's why everything's all dusty and you can't see good. I got to mop everything again. So here's the room I'm getting ready to do. I went over the cracks with a diamond grinder, and then all the nail holes where the tack strip was, patched all that with some Level Quick, just because it's got a finer grain and it was a little easier to work with. And then I came back and I ground this crack down with the diamond grinder after I filled it, which popped some of the stuff out of there, so I'll have to fill that again. But anyway, so first step is to clean everything, which I did with 36 grit sandpaper on a high-speed sander. And so that got everything down to get all the paint off and have a nice clean concrete surface. So we're gonna try to get some stain on here. I'm gonna start with a wash, which is gonna be the terracotta clay. And I'm gonna mix that with water, about 50-50. And I'm just gonna put that on with a mop. This may be kind of tricky to film and work at the same time. It's one of the reasons I haven't done a lot of videos, because usually I'm just trying to get the work done. But today, I've got the mixture of 50-50 water and stain, and I'm just gonna put this on with a mop. I've tried a bunch of different ways, sponge and all that kind of stuff. It was very difficult to work with, and I didn't like it. So I'm gonna show you the technique that I found that works the best. This especially works well with the blue color. The blue is the most difficult color to work with that I found. Because it's hard to get it to the right shade. It wants to try to go in too dark. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm trying to just do a wash of color on top of the concrete, and then I want to add layers to it. So the first coat of stain goes on a lot different than every other coat of stain afterwards. And so I want to get just a base layer of that stain starting to get soaked into the concrete, because everything I add on top is going to have more of a brilliant color than the first layer. You can't judge what color this is going to be from when you're first putting this on here. And if I was putting on just pure stain, this would be about twice as dark, and it makes it a lot harder to control. So the water just evaporates out of the product and dries to whatever consistency you want. If you want it darker, you just keep putting more layers on. So I tried putting the dog up so that he wouldn't be interrupted with the video, but apparently he's got to be the star of the show, and I didn't want him running around here on the floor while I'm putting stain down, because then I'd end up with a bunch of pet tracks, unless you just want that look, which might be kind of cool. But so anyway, this is the basic procedure. I'm going to do the rest of the floor with this wash, and then we'll come back and do the next step. So here I put the first wash coat on the floor, and you can see it has not changed the color of the floor very much. It's going to soak into the more porous material, but we can come back later and darken up the area around it to make that crack disappear and blend in. So when it's wet, it's going to look a lot darker than it is when it starts to dry out. So just be aware of that in between coats. You can let that dry, and as long as you're going on with a wet material over the top of it, it'll start to blend in. Now, if you try to be perfect at this and get everything perfectly even, that's the look you're gonna have. But I want kind of more of a, I think the word's molded look, to look more like a piece of leather or something like that. So it's gonna have some darker areas and some lighter areas, and I'm gonna try to get those to be random as possible, which is difficult to do. On the directional videos, they show using a sponge and some different things. I tried all that. None of that seemed to work as well as just putting it on with the mop. And you may have to sacrifice a mop in order to do it, but I think it's well worth it for the time saving. And plus, and the other way they put it on was with a pump sprayer, but I didn't want to have to mask all my walls and get all crazy with that. But that does give a decent look because you can spray it on, but we'll do that later with the just a spray bottle to blend things in and even it out. We're on the second layer now. You can see the color transition from the lighter area to the darker area where I started with more stain when I was putting it on the floor. So basically it's kind of a translucent product. And so we're building it up in layers, and you can just add or take away material as you need to make it lighter or darker. So if I want an area to have a darker spot, then I get some stain on there and just start making it a little bit heavier. And you don't want the product to puddle, but if you're putting it on pretty heavy and it's as it's drying, it's got some little puddly spots, you can come back and with a little bit damper brush, wipe back over the top of that, and you can blend that back in. So because this is a water-based product, water is kind of your friend and not your enemy. If you have a spot of stain that drips on there and you don't want that, you can come back with a spray bottle with some water in it and spritz some water on top of it, and then it'll start to dissolve that stain again. And then after it starts to dissolve the stain, then you can mop over the top of it with the color of stain with some water. I like to use this stuff thinned down. It just seems like it works a lot better for me to get things evenly and just keep adding layers to it. So at the end, we'll come back with this color again, and we'll do a wash over the whole thing just to get everything evened out to where we want it at. Here's after the application of the second coat, and you can see I'm starting to develop some lighter and some darker areas now. If you want to darken a spot, you just go put some more stain in that area and keep working that in. And then with it being wet, it seems like it blends together better by adding the water in there. I got a little spider friend that's coming to visit me. But some of you may be wondering, how much stain did that take to do that portion? And basically, here's the container. I had about 1.5 inches of stain in the bottom of the container. So it was about to right there. So I dumped that in and added that much water to the bucket, and then did the same thing again. This is coat number 3 that's on the floor now. So I purposefully left some places where it was just coat number 2 so that I can get like a different random color. It is really hard to be random when you're putting this stuff down because you want to do everything the same. But if you it seems like the worse you are at this, the better you are, because it makes it more natural and random looking. And that's another thing with the mop. You can cover more area and you can see what you actually have. If you're using like a sponge or something like that with straight stain, you start putting that stain down and you wipe it on there and you end up with a big dark blotch. And so having some water in there helps to kind of slow the process down so you're not putting so much stain on all at once. So you have a lot better idea what's going on. Here's coat number 4 with the next color. And I just left the stain on the brush that was on there and just started adding the new stain. And as I was working it, less and less of the old color showed through and more of the new color. So that adds to the randomness. So I'm gonna let this dry up a little bit more because it's pretty wet because I've gone over it so many times. And then just at the stage where it's almost like pretty dry, then that's when I'm gonna come back and start doing the next coat. All right, we got about 7 coats of stain on the floor, and we're starting to get that look that I was going for. And at this stage, the water wants to start to puddle up. So you're gonna see places like that where the water doesn't evaporate, and it does some funny stuff with the stain, because it'll stain darker around the edges and be lighter in the middle as it's evaporating. So I got a spray bottle with my third color, and I did 50-50 water on that. And now I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna pick areas that I want to make darker, and I can start to add some color to the floor with this. And then depending on how you set it up, see like those spots there that are really obvious, I can just add more spots around the surrounding area to make it look like it's all blending in. And then depending on if you want just a general kind of darker area, you can adjust your spray bottle to do a fine mist, if I can get it to adjust. And then as you're doing a finer mist, you can, well, you have to play with it, but it's hard to do while I'm doing a video. So now that first spray that I did is basically starting to dry, and it's gonna leave what looks like just basically like water spots, which is kind of the look I was going for. And then I took a little bit of the blue and a little bit of the gray, and I mixed those together just with straight stain. And I'm coming back and I'm adding some more spots with the spray bottle. And you just, little bitty pumps is enough to get it to kind of spritz out there. Just be careful you don't splash it all over the walls. And so it doesn't really matter that this is a little bit dark right now, because I'm going to come back with a wash later. But at this point, I'm not adding any more water to it, because enough stain is soaked into the floor where the concrete's not soaking up the water anymore. So it has to evaporate, so it's sitting on the surface. So that gives you an idea what's going on with that. And then that'll make it so that the floor doesn't look like it's dirty all the time, because it's already got stuff on it. And it'll hide a lot of the imperfections. So while that's drying out in the other room, I'm gonna give you an idea what the other combinations of things I did was. This one I put a polyurethane on top of it, because it's a kid's room. I wanted it to be a little tougher. With the other, I didn't want to have to deal with the smell, so I did the acrylic stain that they sell. So that gives you an idea what this looks like. And I didn't do as many spots in this room, which I kind of like the look of that, but I like the variety of being able to do different things in each room. I could have gone through the whole house and done everything at once to try to stay consistent, but practically trying to move all the furniture and do all that was difficult. So this is what I got. The next step, I took some stain, just full strength, and put it in a bucket, and with the mop I washed over the top of the whole thing. And it's harder to see it on the video, but it took a lot of the intensity out of the color of the spots. And on the video, the blue really shows up as blue. In real life, it's a lot more toned down and brownish color, but that's something just what the camera does. The final step is the clear acrylic sealer. I took the, they give you some silica for traction that you mix in. I just dumped it right into the bucket. I used about half of what they recommended per gallon, because when I did this floor, it was too much, and while it gives you good traction, it also makes it more difficult to clean. So by cutting it back to about half of that amount, it works a lot better. So you got to shake this up, pour some into the bucket there, and a little bit actually goes a long ways, surprisingly enough. So I'm getting a lot of mileage out of this. Both the stain and the sealer goes a lot further than what they say in the directions. So the first room I did, I put down with a roller, but I found that wasn't necessary and it was more difficult to use. So I'm just back to the mop, and I don't care if there's a little bit of stain in there, because it's all the same color anyway. So I take that and just put that out on the floor, even it out. And I could put it on a little wet and heavy to begin with, and then come back and wipe over it to even it out till it's the right amount of material, just to seal the concrete up so that it doesn't lose its color. In the other room, I used a polyurethane, which is a lot tougher. This stuff, it will scratch a little bit. It's only got about a 1 to 2 year life expectancy. So if you want something more permanent, you can do that. But the nice thing about this is it's quick and easy to put down, and there's virtually no smell, and it dries really fast. And I put 2 coats on. And then just make sure you shake up the container every time before you pour some into the bucket, because the silica stuff that they give you for traction, it floats. So you want it to be shaken up so it's mixed up evenly, otherwise you'll end up with some that's got a lot of traction, some that doesn't have much. And if you don't put the traction stuff in there, the floor will be really squeaky if your shoes are wet. If you put too much, then it makes it really hard to clean. So about 1/2 to 3/4 of the amount that they give you seemed like that was just about right. Here's the finished product with 2 coats of sealer on it. The nice thing about this acrylic sealer is it does not take long at all to dry, and virtually no smell at all. And it looks amazing when you get it done. I wish it would hold up just a little bit longer, but you know, hey, for the speed and ease of use, and the fact it's water based, works really well. So then the only thing I have left to do is wash out my mop head with some warm soapy water, and it'll be ready to go for the next time I want to use it.